now to move on to the lighter side of our barrel aging program. First of all, is everybody here kind of familiar with, we're going to talk a little more about Brett beer and sour beer, and they are very different, and we'll kind of explain a little bit more. We're going to start with Brett to kind of explain that, but has everybody been in the pub and at least tried Black Angel or tried Serenity or Transcendence or Vigilance, one of those beers? So, yeah. Okay, so we're going to put that all under the umbrella of sour beer. I'm going to talk real quickly about this beer so you guys can drink it. Everybody has, it's like ADD. You're like, oh God, I just want to taste this. Thank you for holding off. I appreciate it. So I wanted you guys to see what Brett's really about. People drink a Brett beer. People think Brett is a sour beer. It's acidic. It's bright. It's tart. It's all these things. It is, but it's not. Because Brett's a yeast, and it functions like a yeast. And if you love it and you treat it like a yeast, it's going to act like a yeast, and it's going to act like a Belgian yeast. There's actually not that much difference between this yeast and Saison, which is another beer that we do a lot of in our place. The cell sizes are very same. They tend to act very similar during fermentation. They want to kind of hang out. They don't want to settle out and be clear. They really are aggressive at metabolizing sugars. Brett is maybe just a little more aggressive. And the thing about Brett is that it has this really beautiful, long-term lifespan. It is a great consumer of oxygen. It's a great consumer of, wood cellulose and all kinds of, it'll eat anything pretty much. And so all those things you think about as a Brett beer, if you've had, Serenity or one of those beers at our place, those are kind of the long-term aging characteristics of Brett. So just like when we talk about, we're looking for all those really beautiful oxidative characters in dark age or something like that, in our Brett beers, we're looking for that development of small acid production and things like that are going to make it really bright. It's going to create these really great tropical notes, a little bit of that kind of funky old leather and stuff like that. And then again, a little bit of acidity, which acidity is something that we're looking for in these styles because it makes the beers feel bright, really kind of a little bit of a dry tartness. And it just makes them really kind of exciting with a lot of depth and really drinkable and still, fairly low alcohol, which is kind of one of the beautiful things of this. Again, to kind of reference what Luke said earlier, dry beer is more drinkable beer in general. Like if the beer is drier, you're going to feel like drinking more of it. And that's one of the beautiful things about Brettanomyces is that it has this wonderful ability to just eat everything and leave you with this super winey, dry beer. So, that said, going back to how I want to talk about how Brett is a yeast. We've been brewing Brett beers now. I think we've got, maybe 12 or so full batches of 100% Brettanomyces primary fermented beers. So that is the only yeast we're using for this beer. Brett originally, if you guys have drank a lot of Belgian beer, you maybe have had Orval. It's kind of the classic reference to what Brettanomyces is and kind of one of the origins in craft beer as far as the mainstream is concerned. That is a beer where they ferment it with, again, the other guy's Saccharomyces, right? Saccharomyces is what 99% of the beers on the market are brewed with some variation of Saccharomyces. So Orval is a beautiful kind of Belgian pale that's brewed with Saccharomyces, and then in the end, when they put it in the bottle, again, that character of Brettanomyces, the ability to produce those kind of barnyardy characters, which we'll talk about a little bit more as we taste some more beers, and its ability to continue consuming sugars and developing in the bottle, they've used that for secondary to kind of help it age and create a really beautiful profile as it ages. A more kind of modern take on Brett is this concept of primary Brett fermentation, which has been kind of pioneered here in the U.S. for the most part. Crooked Stave, Russian River, even New Belgium, Lost Abbey, those are kind of the guys who really pioneered the concept of using Brettanomyces as a primary yeast. And we've been really excited to get a chance to play with that. So, using it in the primary context, it ends up kind of tasting like a Belgian yeast. And so what we decided to do was just to kind of let everybody see what the yeast tastes like fresh. We decided just instead of doing, we've done 2 Belgian IPAs this year called Poprange, and they've both been tweaked a little bit on the hops. We decided to do another Belgian IPA, but this time we decided to do it with 100% Brett primary. So this was fermented just like a normal beer. It doesn't have all of those things you would think of in a sour beer, but I just wanted you guys to see and kind of taste. This is what Brett tastes like before it's had all that time to sit in a barrel and have microoxidation and feed on all the complex sugars that weren't taken down in primary to get to that point where it's really nice and sour. You guys, has everybody here kind of had maybe tried one of those Belgian IPAs we did?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm sure you guys are finding a lot of similarities in the two. just to throw out some kind of things that we liked about this yeast and why we used it for this, is it just has this amazing kind of tropical fruit burst to it. It puts off these really beautiful kind of, big pineapple. Like I think of really overripe pineapple, mango, maybe even a little bit of kind of papaya in there, and you still get some of those kind of traditional Belgian phenolics that you're looking for too.
Yeah, this is an experiment in a lot of ways for us, because up to this point we've been moving our Brett beers straight from a primary fermentation in stainless steel directly into wood, and really not getting to taste the end product without it touching wood. So this is really neat for both Walt and I to be tasting this too with you, because we're both just floored at how much this just tastes like a regular Belgian beer. I mean, I don't know about you guys, it just tastes like a Belgian beer. Yeah.
All right, so hey, just so you guys know, just for like a personality reference point, think of Luke as like Dark Age, and then when you guys taste like, if you come in and have Black Angel, think of me as like Black Angel. So like Luke really loves the clean beer. I really love the sour beer. We kind of meet in the middle, and Britannomyces is that kind of middleman that we both really appreciate and we really get into. So cheers to that. It's a middle ground. But again, it makes for a very dynamic profile in our beers. It's like how, we love all beer, but it's kind of cool that we're kind of passionate about different things, and it kind of comes together in the middle. So to answer, let's just go to...
I spray Walt down with like
I'm
sanitizer when he walks into the brewery.
So to talk about, bacteria, wild yeast, okay? This yeast is super hardy. It's crazy. It gets in barrels. Like if you guys have ever dealt or been in the wine industry or been on tours, like Brett is a big, scary word in wineries because Brett is everywhere. It's a wild yeast and it's so aggressive. Like literally, the whole world will end. The apocalypse will happen. Nuclear bombs everywhere. Cockroaches and Brett. That's all it's going to be like. So it literally has the ability to bore and live inside the wood. If you could nuke that thing with whatever you wanted, that Brett would still be there, and it would find its way back in. So it is something we have to be very aware of. When I talked about how we were going to do these kind of sour beers, it was super important for us to have this other facility. We needed another building. We needed a way to isolate me and the bugs and the barrels from all the beautiful beers that Luke's making sure don't get contaminated with me and the barrels and the bugs. So having that separate space was really important because it is so aggressive. And then same thing with Lactobacillus and Pediococcus, which those are kind of the two primary bacteria, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that produce a lot of acidic notes, which drive sour beer. Sour beer is sour. You think of like lemonade and things like that. That's because of the acidity of it. So to both of your questions, yes, we have designated everything. And and again, this goes back to the challenges of barrel aging, and specifically the challenges of barrel aging sour beer. You basically need another 20% of capital just to fund a project like that, because now you need 2 pumps, and you need 2 of every hose. You need 2 of every gasket, you need 2 of every tank, you need 2 of every space, and then you need more spares for the barrels to sit, because unlike these bourbon barrel beers, sour beers tend to take a little bit longer. The Brett beers you can turn a little faster, but the sour beers, they need a lot of time to mature, because it is about that long-term kind of acidification of the beer that has to happen. So to answer both of your questions, yes, we have specific tanks, we have specific everything as far as going from the fermenter to the barrels. We clean everything really well. We have a really great method of transferring, and we CO2 purge everything, so we don't really worry about too much pickup in that transfer. And there's also kind of this, at a certain, if you have this huge variety of really aggressive, really hardy bacteria and yeast in a beer, and this little bit of wild stuff, this is going to dominate. So there's a little bit of that comes into play, but for the most part, we're very careful about cleaning, purging. I mean, we treat our sour beers, I think there's one stipulation in home brewing or in professional brewing, maybe early on, that I don't think is really so much around anymore, but then, it's sour beer. Oh, I have a crappy beer, it doesn't taste right. I'll just put some Brett in it, it'll fix everything. Or I'll put some bugs in it, it's going to be delicious. And I'll just leave it sitting out because it's sour beer, who gives a shit? Saccharomyces is kind of like a trained dog. It's like your dog, It rolls over, it shakes, you throw a stick, it goes and it gets it comes back, it does all those great things. Whereas Brett's kind of like a cat. It's like, want to hang out with you right now, or maybe I want to show you some love, or maybe I'm going to just freak out and scratch your face off. You don't know what's going to happen. So when we talk about sour beers, it's a little bit more of this journey we take with the beer, where we just try to do everything we can to put something that tastes delicious to us into the barrel with the right bacteria, the right wild yeast, and then we kind of just step away and wait and let it do its thing. And our job at the end is to kind of just help, just go through the journey with this beer, this barrel, and then at the end we taste it, and then we'll talk about the blending process, which we have not had a chance to do a whole lot of yet. We've done a lot of batch blending, which Luke was talking about earlier, but we're building up, and that's why we have so many barrels, so we can start really blending, which is where we now kind of gain control of the product. So this is the beer that we were very lucky, and it judged very well, and we're very proud of the beer, and we thought it was great, but it did win a gold medal, which was actually the first gold medal for Asheville, which is pretty awesome. And we're super excited to bring that back to hometown. So this beer, what we did with this was basically a saison done with primary fermentation. We do all those beers in an open fermenter, and then it went into if you're into wines, it went into silver oak Cabernet barrels, which we just got super lucky. A barrel broker called me. They're like, "Hey, I got these silver oak barrels, and they're by far the prettiest barrels we've ever done. I mean, those things just like shine." So it's a really wonderful wine. It's about like an $80 bottle of wine. So it's really just great to, the quality of the barrel does make a little bit of difference. So I'm gonna go ahead and give a nod to that barrel because it produced a really wonderful beer. This is really just kind of showcasing Brett. This is a very straightforward style. We did this because we wanted to show what Brett can be. And it can be very wine-like. I think one of the great descriptors we always use for a beer like this was looking at like a New Zealand wine, like a Sauvignon Blanc or something, where it's got, again, it's a really, we kind of upplayed it in that IPA with all the hops we use. But in this beer, it really does put off those big tropical notes, but then you get that nice, that kind of basement-y, musty funk thing Lou was talking about. A little bit like, I always think of it as one of my favorite kind of, people always say, horse blanket, whatever. Yes, horse blanket is a good descriptor. It always comes off, Brett comes off to me a little bit more like, like wet, fresh bales of hay. Where it's got a little bit of that outside kind of rustic mustiness, a little bit of dust on the husk that you're smelling. It has a little bit of fun, and then again, that old leather belt that's in your dad's or your granddad's closet.
But as we move forward, and this is something that Walt and I are super excited about. Is Walt, like he said, he loves some sour beer. He loves Brett beer. He's loved the sock, dirty, nasty stuff that I couldn't enjoy. But month by month, as we're making these beers, I'm enjoying them more and more as we go through this process. Because it's something that I hadn't liked before. But we're starting to get these really beautiful, like Walt was saying, tropical notes. And I'd love to hear some of the descriptors that you guys are picking up out of this as well. But this is, I get just a ton of the really fresh papaya to me. I get a lot of papaya, but I don't know. What do you guys get? What do you get? Sweet lemon. I got a question from over here. This is probably for more people that are maybe brewer-based, but the question was, so Saccharomyces, the clean beer yeast. On the Belgian side, it has this huge fermentation temperature range. You can ferment an ale Saccharomyces yeast from anywhere from 62 degrees all the way up to 90 degrees. And the question was, can Brettanomyces, can it handle the same thing? And for us, we've definitely seen a resounding yes, that Brettanomyces loves all different temperatures, and it's like it's all of the different yeasts of Saccharomyces in one almost. Because as you go lower in the temperature range with Brettanomyces, we're getting these softer, more subtle notes. We're right now fermenting our Brettanomyces at 74 degrees up to 87.
But yeah, the only thing is, Brett doesn't like being much colder than 70. It really is a 70 and above. Again, I think a great reference for anybody who's a brewer out there, French Saison, 3711, and Brett are just like, they almost act, they're friends. They act so similar. So if you've worked with that Saison yeast, it's happy 70 and up, and we've had beers get up all the way into the low 90s as they're fermenting, and it's a very aggressive, vigorous fermentation that happens really quickly. there's probably like half of your glasses right now. Sorry to get a bit faster. So this is sour beer. If you guys came, I grabbed this. This is a sample directly from a barrel. And this kind of starts to give you an idea of why blending barrels together, even if it's just batch blending, it gives us a better product. So this is actually is the only original barrel we have still of Genesis, which was our first blonde sour that we put out. This beer has been in the barrel for 13 months now. Genesis is a straightforward kind of blonde beer. It does have some nice character. We actually just today, Luke and I sat down and worked this beer into a blend of several different batches of beer that we're going to probably release in the next couple weeks. But this, again, now this is a great example of sour beer. This has all those like really bright acidic characters. There is, you're going to get, again, you should be getting kind of like, one of the big things I always smell and taste out front in a sour beer is, if you guys are familiar with like that kind of like really tart taste of a plum skin, when you've just eaten the skin, not the fruit itself, not the sweetness of the fruit, but just that really biting kind of lemony tart pop. That's something I always pick up. I definitely am getting a little bit of, there is that very, very soft, again, that acetobacter can be a pleasant thing in very soft amounts. And then after that, it's just that nice kind of lactic tartness kind of hits you in the back of the mouth. Those really bright lemony characters. So anyways, I just wanted you guys to see what this beer was like kind of after it's sat a while, what it tastes like flat. And then so what we're able to do is when we have a beer like this, to me, this is missing a little bit of depth and character. It's missing some of those kind of, it's very lemony to me. So when we're blending this, we took this and we blended it with a beer that had a little bit more of that funky Brett character and another beer that had a little bit more wine character to it. And by putting those three together, we were able to put something together I think you guys will really enjoy if you like sour beer, you come to the pub. The blend came out really nice. And, so this is kind of where beer meets wine, right? That whole concept of taking a bunch of vintages of wines and taking the characteristics you really like and putting them together, that all comes together and makes a better product at the end. So this is where now we kind of regain control of the product, right? Like we've let it go, we've let the bacteria and all that stuff take over. And this is the moment where we get to come in and kind of use our developed skill as brewers or as beer drinkers to try and take all of those things and put them back together. This will be, actually when we release this will be actually the very first batch we've ever done that is not just batch blended, where we just brewed a beer, aged it, blended all those barrels together, which that alone, because what that does is like, say you have a beer that's like really, really, really tart and really acidic, and another one that's like super malty and crazy, and another one that's like way funky. And if you have 8 barrels, right, and you just take all 8, and they've all done kind of weird things, but there's always the center, right? It's like this basic beer. Let's talk about Black Angel, right? That's a batch blended beer. Black Angel's basically Black Angel. Some barrels are going to be like way cherry and like really high end kind of lemony plum notes. Some are going to get kind of like super funky. But at the end of the day, if you taste all of them, you go, okay, this is the same beer. It's just each barrel's a little different. So when we blend 8 barrels together, what you do is you take all those crazy barrels that are spiking here and there, and then you get this nice layered complexity that ends up making a really nice balanced beer. So that's going to innately make a better beer just having that opportunity. But now as we're building this barrel stock, we've got 250 barrels that are all sour and aging. Now we can go back and say, well, I'm going to use a barrel of this beer, and a barrel of that beer, and a barrel of this beer, and we're going to use a little bit of this barrel and a lot of this barrel, and we can start really developing more control over that blending process to create something that is more complex and maybe more ideal and get us a little more control over what we're doing than just saying, well, if I have kind of like the mean of all these things, it's going to make a good product at the end. So that's kind of where we're going, and that's where things are going to start changing for us in the next years, that we do have, we kind of brew 3 kinds of beer in the sour facility. There's 100% Brett, there's blending stock, which are just this like red and this blonde sour beers that are just for blending. And then we have Black Angel and some new stuff that's coming down the pipeline you guys haven't seen yet, but it's out there, I promise.